I just want to say thank you to each of you for joining us for this next installment of the Rebels with a Heart conference, virtual conference series, where we're having the opportunity to meet and speak with leaders and thought leaders and just general emissaries of corporate culture and leadership and where we're going in terms of this new environment. And just very appreciative of each of you spending your time with us, as well as your expertise and your wisdom with the people that are joining us here. And in just a moment, I'll allow each of you to give a little background on yourself, your role, your organizations, and what you're passionate about. And I know each of you is very passionate on the whole about empowering your people, empowering your companies, and creating an environment where both in and outside of work, people are at their best and pushing their limits for growth. So with that, I want to acknowledge each of you. Thank you. And we'll kick it off with you, Tom, and maybe give a little background on what brought you here and what you feel like sharing today.
Well, what brought me here is you and your company. And I have to tell you that I really admire what LifeGuides is doing, because it's bringing a consciousness to the idea that employees today are really being traumatized by what's going on. And that I know companies are really, really, really busy trying to fix their businesses and stay open, but you have to take time to address the emotional well-being of your employees. It's just something you have to have the time to do. My background is culture, and my title is culture engineer, whatever that means. And I have recently taken on the title of modern elder, because I have just enormous amount of respect for the young people that I will get to work with in my work now. And I want to share with them what they know, their technology, their agileness, and in return, I will share with them my experience and my knowledge and my wisdom.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Tom. And also just for the folks who are joining us, Tom, in his previous experience, also is really a culture expert in the world of restaurants and hospitality, being one of the founders of PF Chang's, which I think everyone has heard of before, as well as 14 other restaurant concepts that you've built over your career. So I think you have a deep understanding of what customer service and employee experience and what the ideal world of that should and could be. So I want to just put that out there as well. So Robyn, passing it over to you, welcome as well. And I'm excited for the audience to hear about and learn from you. So.
Great. Thank you so much for having me. I feel very honored and blessed that I am able to be a part of this panel and learn from the folks out there. I am the employee experience leader here at DriveTime, which is just a great fun way to say all things people. I've had the good fortune to lead our organization through whatever people are calling this, the pandemic, the crisis, the change, into, I know what some folks are going to glitch over on this, so the new normal. But I've had a long history in HR, in restaurants, retail. I've worked for some wonderful brands like Dollar General and Five Below and Dunkin', and feel amazed that I get to be here at DriveTime prior to all of this. And now even more fortunate to be a part of the entire strategy to position our organization. And Tom mentioned staying open, and our operations teams are working diligently on that. And I get to be a part of how we stay open, safe, and create the best environment to help our folks get through this challenging time. As we all know, we're gonna hopefully come out stronger and better on the other side.
Yeah, thanks for that. I know in talking with you, you've done so many interesting and innovative things. I think the people on the line will be really interested to learn about and from you in that experience. So very excited to have you too, Robyn. So thank you. And coming around to you, Adam, I'm very appreciative of your time and a little bit about, if you'd like to introduce yourself and your role and your experience, would love to have you do that too.
Sure. My name is Adam Goodman. I'm the CEO of Goodmans Interior Structures. We're a 66-year-old third-generation office furniture dealer in Arizona and New Mexico. And I think the most important thing to know about me is that from the time I was a little boy, watching my father and grandfather in this business, the one thing that I was certain of was I knew I did not want to be in this business at all. Absolutely certain of that. And yet here I am. And that has a lot to do. I learned early on I had a different purpose. And I wanted to make an impact on my community. And the best way I felt to do that was to be in the newspaper business. And so I went and pursued a newspaper career in Pittsburgh, Robyn, with the North Hills News Record, exactly, working for Gannett newspapers and going, they were bouncing me around the country. And when my father said, look, if you ever want to be in a family business, now is the time. You want to give it a try now. I came over to the family business, and I found it to be interesting and challenging, but not particularly fulfilling. And so my job over the last 20 years has been to how to pivot this company to make it a purpose-based company that more aligns with my sense of purpose. And I have a reason to want to get up and get out of bed every day. And that I have accomplished that. And so it feels really good.
Awesome. Thanks for being here, Adam. Thanks again for all of you. So I think one thing to kind of kick it off, we were talking about this before, but just to bring the audience into the discussion, I had commented that I find it fascinating the level of focus on personalization in each of your businesses and the level of detail focus in each of your businesses. I think that all of you has a unique perspective on that, from restaurants to automobiles to furniture and design, that you understand that standpoint from how to appeal to your market. And then that also applies inwardly to how do you manage and create an environment for your employees to showcase that externally. And going back to that idea of how do we build cultures, how do we build healthy cultures, and how do we adapt our cultures in response to circumstances. So that's something that I think is a really common theme. So maybe with that, I'll start, I hand over to you, Robyn, just because I think the audience would love to hear some of these things. We're in a time right now where our cultures are being confronted to adapt. And it's both a challenge and an opportunity for organizations and for teams and for people to grow. I'd love for you to share some of the things that you're doing with your organization in terms of response to this, to both fortify and innovate your culture.
Yeah, it's interesting as I think back over the last 75 days, we were standing in front of our 1,800 people in our call center saying, we didn't know if we could ever figure out a work from home model. And we weren't sure that was going to be the case in the future for them. And in about 6 days, we got 1,800 people home working and highly productive. And so when we talk about adapting and innovating, an entire team of people found ways to take 1,800 people out of an environment and get them home and be safe, and then immediately went to how do we virtually train them, ensure that they understand work from home, and literally take them out of their environment and reposition them to be comfortable at home in their environment and get set up, all while challenging themselves to have difficult conversations with our customers in that finance business. And so we really started to think about how are we going to stay engaged and keep this population of people that was used to being around 800 people in different buildings and now isolated at home in a time of a crisis where themselves were very worried about what's going to happen to me, my role, my health, my family's health, and help them get in the right mindset of we're safe, we're good, we're going to take care of you. And the better we take care of you, the better you'll take care of our customers. And so we had to pivot on a dime from we could just walk up to people and share information to how we were going to leverage every bit of technology that was band-aided and bubble-gummed together in that first 8 days. And launched all sorts of crazy programs. We've got virtual wellness coach. She's actually here today filming videos that used to be things we would have people go and do yoga on the lawn. And now we had to figure out a way to teach them how to avoid tech neck. And so really just had to pivot our whole strategy around a concept where people won't get their energy from each other in the same place anymore, but still wanted them to have the same energy about each other and our company from a distance.
Yeah, I've been impressed by the speed and the velocity that you've done that at one of the things we talked about. We'll talk more about some of the specifics, but yeah, I mean, how quickly you migrated and changed the culture to be, work from home and to be virtual, where you came from to where you are now has been really fascinating. And to hear you talk about the level of productivity that your people have maintained and also the level of well-being that continues to develop with that has also been really fascinating. Because I think that's one of the interesting themes is that for many companies, the productivity has continued to be a positive, but it's at the expense of people's, personal and work lives becoming increasingly blurred. And what does that do in the long run to people's well-being and engagement. So something we can come back to. Adam, I know in our conversations, you've done quite a bit in terms of both response and preparation for what you see as kind of the second half of the year, and how this will, change the way that we're all doing business, both from an office setting as well as from home office setting. I'd love to hear, and the audience would love to hear from your standpoint as well, some things that you've been doing in response, and then I'll come around to you, Tom, in a little bit too. So.
Yeah, sure. It occurs to me, though, that I've been on a lot of Zoom calls, and I'm pretty aware of how these things work. And I have no evidence there's actually an audience here. Like, usually there's little faces or boxes or something. I think it's just the four of us talking. So that's fine. I'm happy to talk to the three of you. So I will tell the three of you about this. But don't tell anybody else. This is all secret, just between the three of us.
Yeah, we've set it up just so you see the panelists. That's why you have a panelist link. There's lots of other people here joining us.
I'm sure there are, Derek.
Okay, cool.
We've done a lot of really. I tell you what, this whole thing has spurred a lot of creativity inside me personally, and I think our whole team. And I'd say there's 4 themes of how we've responded to things. One is about our purpose and really doubling down on our purpose, this idea about making an impact on the community and changing the community. One of the very first things we did when we became clear we were going to be leaving the office for a while in early March, we reached out to nonprofits, all our friends in the nonprofit community that we do a lot of work with, and said, you're all going to be working from home too. So why don't you come into the office before the world shuts down, pick out any chair you want that's sitting here in our showroom, and take it home and work on that for the last couple of months. I've gotten a lot of really nice notes from both the nonprofits, who are way more comfortable than they were, but also our employees, who recognize what an important thing that was to do. We've got a donation program for furniture for nonprofits, where we take our customers' surplus furniture when they say we don't need this anymore. We warehouse it and give it away to nonprofits for free. That's just ramped up like crazy, and that's also been incredibly gratifying for our people, that they know that the what we do is furniture, but why we do it is to make an impact. And so doing those things that can really double down on that. There's another really fun thing that I'm excited about that we just started doing. I'm on the board of the Phoenix Symphony. Phoenix Symphony is that's obviously having some struggles. Musicians personally, they're bred to perform. That's what they want to do, and they don't have a venue. And these Zoom calls are getting a little stale. Like, the novelty was fun for a little while, but it's getting a little stale. So what we're doing is bringing in a musician to perform 5 minutes, do a piece for 5 minutes right there on the call to kick it off, talk about the piece, and then go on about their way. We give money to the symphony, then get some money in the musician's pocket. Our employees absolutely go crazy out of this. It's so uplifting to have something like that, a little taste of culture like that, and downright inspirational, frankly. We're now doing it for our customers as well, which is super fun, really great to do. So a lot of that kind of stuff. So that's on doubling down on the purpose and really making sure that our people know that even in times of trouble, we stay true to that core purpose, and that's important. We've also been taking really good care of our people. So we everybody who was, to borrow a phrase, Tom, essential, who are still working, couldn't work from home. Let's say it that way. We gave a 20% pay increase right away too, and that continues. I'm not sure when that stops. We haven't figured that part out yet, but at some point that'll stop. We've really I welcome your advice on that. The communication, we have doubled down and tripled down on communication. So much communication, and equally important, transparency, like crystal, ice clear transparency, to the point that the bad news as well. I got some macroeconomic data that was not really good for our industry, something that tracks to our industry. And I came out and talked about that and what it means and how we mitigate it and what we do. So that really clear transparency. What else? I'm thinking a lot about the psychological safety of our people. And knowing what they're going through with the kid at home, and they're trying to teach the kid, and they're trying to do their job, and the stress, and the caring for a parent, and I'm afraid about coming back into an office environment. So early on, we said, no one's going to have to come back until you feel safe coming back. Oh. Made that declaration, and so that could take a year. That we don't know, but I just wanted to get that off of their plates. Summer camps canceled, all that they can stay doing what they're doing, and it'll be fine. On a personal side, I've been sharing a lot more of my personal life during this time than I might otherwise do. A lot of the vulnerable stuff that's going on at home, a lot of the stuff I'm with my family, and making a point to get more engaged in the personal lives of our people, spending a little bit of time at the beginning of each call, checking in with what's going on, where I might not have done that in a meeting sense before. And then finally, we've had a lot of fun stuff going on. I early on discovered Cameo.com. Yeah. This is my favorite. And we've had IP and all kinds of celebrities giving messages to our employees that are just awesome. Everybody's just digging that. We had a TikTok contest. That's another thing we did there.
We did too.
Did you? It was so much fun. My daughters and I, exactly. There you go. We kicked it off, and I know that one. And so anyway, I'll stop there. But it's on those 4 pillars is how we've been progressing.
First off, I thank you for that. I mean, I think it's evident that all of you have fun. That's a nice common theme amongst all of you. I appreciate you bringing the fact about welcoming people's families and their personal lives into the environment. That's obviously a huge part, a big shift around everyone's lives in terms of that integration. You talk about Zoom. I've always appreciated, Adam, your focus on purpose and impact just in general in the time that we've known each other. And this here you talk about how you just put that fundamentally into the DNA of the company, and that people just experience that, and that tends to just showcase to your clients and to your community, which is very clear as well. On a tactical level, I had a question before I come back to that topic of purpose in a moment. You mentioned communication, you mentioned the volume and the consistency and the over communication. How are you doing it? Like, through what means, besides TikTok and Cameo and Zoom? What else are you doing that's different, or what else are you seeing that's having a big impact, that's really creating both that feeling of connection as well as that feeling of consistency and communication?
I'd say there's probably 2 other mediums I can think of at the moment that are getting it done. One is a lot of handwritten notes. Okay. Really amped up I always write a lot of notes to employees. If a customer makes a comment, there's a note and there's a gift card of some sort that goes along with it. So I ratcheted that up to stay connected. And also, this is kind of cool. And maybe this is a dirty word for Tom, but Grubhub. Grubhub is not a dirty word. All right, good. Alone among all those services, and I looked at all of them, they're the only ones that seem to have this a corporate plan where I can put a credit on Derek on your account and say to you, hey, I really like what you're doing. I know you're going through a hard time. Here's $100 to go get yourself some PF Chang's for dinner tonight. Nice. And that's enabled me to reach down anywhere in the organization, have a reason to come talk to somebody, to say, look, I know what you're going through, and I know it's a lot, and I know you're lonely, you live by yourself at home, you miss the social environment, and I just want to be able to do something for you. And so there's a couple different ways. I'd say one more thing too. Yeah. Every little department throughout the company, Phoenix, Tucson, Albuquerque, is having their team meetings, their check-ins, which I ordinarily would never, I would never step into someone's meeting in a conference room like, hey, just want to check in. But I am on all of them as often as possible, and just with no message to deliver, maybe say something funny, I don't know. Or maybe I do have a message to deliver, but honestly, I'm just trying to be present and be there, and so they see me and they know and stay connected, and that's been awesome.
Zoom crashing is what you're recommending.
Zoom crashing.
Crashing,
yeah, exactly. Awesome.
We just need a link.
Yeah.
You just need a link.
It is interesting, Derek, as you mentioned, and Adam, it's funny, as we talked about our communication strategy, so my team also owns internal communications for all of our organization. And, we had been talking about emails before and videos, and we, similar to you, we went old school and we said, you know what, people are at home. We're going to start sending out cards, handwritten notes. We're going to revamp our recognition program and get away from this, like pick something online, wait for the supply chain to figure out when it comes. We're going to drop you a gift card and let you get what you want. And quite frankly, if you want Uber Eats, use the Amex gift card and figure it out. We also did a little bit of what we're calling the humiliation strategy. And our leadership team has TikToked. We've thrown ping pong balls at each other with red Solo cups taped to ourselves, wearing different face shields or face coverings to show that they have another purpose following this. Like, don't worry about your investment in your face coverings because you can use them at parties later. And so we've done tons of things. My team, I am live on LinkedIn. Actually, I led the TikTok challenge and they put it out externally as well. I didn't know that was going to happen when I did it. But we very similar have started to show our employees that there are other ways to do the things you would have normally done virtually. And you can play, we didn't play beer pong, by the way, we did it for lip sync contests, but you can play those same things. We've started to get on House Party with some folks, and you can play dice games and get people away from the normal work type of interaction. So it's been kind of fun to do some of the more connectivity things that you would have not done before because work was work and fun was sort of fun. And now we're just having fun. And the backgrounds people are using on their Teams meetings, of their kids and their cats. And we have theme calls where we're telling everybody download your favorite picture from vacation. And then we talk about that on on the calls, because you can turn your background into whatever you want it to be. So lots of fun things that, we would have never thought of doing before. We've said there's lots of different modalities to do this now differently.
For me, it is so gratifying to hear these extraordinary culture warriors fighting this battle. And every day I connect with other thought leaders and other culture warriors that I know. And I'm hearing just extraordinary things. I'd like to believe that in some way this is going to impact the overall consciousness of all kinds of industries. And what I've come to understand about culture, first of all, it's a term that's being overused and misused a lot. I think a lot of times everyone's talking about culture, but I think a lot of people are mistaking cultural aspirations for actual culture. And probably the most important thing I've learned about culture in my career is that culture is as culture does. Culture isn't the poster on the wall, and it's not our mission and vision statement. Culture is what exists. If somewhere in your culture it says we're a culture of respect, but you have one manager in your organization that is disrespecting their employees, one manager that is bullying their employees, to those employees, you're not a culture of respect. And everything else you say loses credibility. And I love hearing these great ideas, but I call my company Round World Management because I've worked with so many flat world companies. I've worked with so many flat world thinking managers that, well, being a round world thinker myself has gotten me into a lot of trouble in my career. I define the difference between round world companies and flat world companies. To me, a flat world company manages through policies and procedures and rules and regulations. And when they have an issue that they need to deal with, a problem they need to solve, the first thing they ask themselves is, like, what's our policy on that? What's the rule? And if there isn't one, they got to have a meeting and then another meeting until they come up with another policy and another rule. And but round world companies are companies that manage through their values and their beliefs and their guiding principles. And so when they're facing a crisis like we're facing now, the question they ask themselves is, what do we believe about this? How does our values help us come up with solutions to this problem that are consistent with our values, so that if we become a round world organization, then what happens is that everybody is using our well, I think of culture like a filter, think of it like a coffee filter. So when you have a great culture and you're training it and you're living it, whenever anybody has a decision to make in your organization, all they have to do is take their decision and pour it through your filter, which is your culture. And what comes out the other end will be a good decision that's going to be consistent throughout your organization, from manager to manager, from business to business. And the part that I'm hoping is some of this that you're talking about, some of these ideas that I'm hearing on these Zoom calls are really going to permeate and become a permanent change in culture for people. People are going to move from being flat world companies to round world, because I assure you the problems that we need to solve right now are going to require round world thinking.
So thank you for raising that, a couple of things. So one, obviously the rebels with a heart are very much associated with round world companies. That's a pretty common theme, right? The idea of operating outside the rules, creating new rules, creating, people first rules. That's a key part of what we're talking about. So I appreciate you acknowledging that. And that's a good question, actually, for both Robyn and Adam. Of all the things that you've shared, do you see those things continuing beyond now this experience? Will these be here to stay, so to speak? Or are these part of your new or optimized culture, right?
I think, Derek, I think they were always here. They're not new.
Yeah.
We just figured out a different way to do them, right? So to Tom's point, we looked at this entire crisis as, what's the right thing to do? That's really the question we ask every time something comes up. And yes, like every company, we have policies and all those other things that people have to have guardrails. But as challenges come to us, we've asked, what's the right thing to do? And everything that I think we're doing, while yes, it's innovative in the space in which we're faced with all the new dynamics, but all of it was already there. So we had recognition, we had transparent communication, we had fun. And so instead of doing Thirsty Thursdays where people would come together and play minute to win it games, we had to figure out how to do it virtually. And so for us, I think what we've now focused on is, let's not think about it as if, and Adam mentioned this, like when everyone comes back, everyone may never come back, right? So now as an organization, we have to use Tom's coffee filter for our core principles and say, we need to design all of these things for all audiences, because we do have some people who absolutely want to come back to the office. They have personal challenges at home, or working at home just does not work for them. And we want to make sure that we have an experience where the people who want to be in the office can be, and they're getting activities and interaction in a way that works for them. And there are people who are saying, you know what, I've love working from home and I don't know that I ever need to come back. And we've said, great, as long as you're productive and you can stay connected, that works for you too. And so I don't think about it as there's going to be some magic time where someone says this is over and we're going to shift back to what we did before. I think it's what we've always done, just in a way that's now connecting differently. And so we're going to continue to build on those things and think about it as a journey with no destination and no end. We're just going to consistently be here. And normal is different every day at our company. So this didn't really change how we thought about it.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. It's very helpful to hear. Adam, you want to chime in on that?
Yeah, that was a really interesting way to put it. And I'm pretty sure the 20% pay increase isn't going to stay. I've got that figured out. But and I like what you said, Robyn. I think that's right. I think that I think we had the culture, the coffee filter, and this is like a new canvas. I'm mixing metaphors, I realize. But it's like there's a new opportunity to express the culture, and that's what was so exciting. Like, oh wow, we can do. And so that all popped up. Now, that said, I'll admit the idea of getting more personal, it never felt natural and comfortable to me. Certainly being vulnerable always did. I'm comfortable with that, but I never got too mixed up in, I don't know, tell them about your kids or something like that. And we started a fun icebreaker. And here's a free idea for everybody on the call, which is really just three of you.
Don't worry, I'll steal it.
Okay, so it's really great. And so you imagine, so for my team, which, again, we know each other, we like each other, we got good personal relationships, but I don't know all the names of their kids, for example. So the icebreaker we did was, okay, you're in your home office now, around things that are important to you. Pick up something in your home office that's of unique significance to you and share it with the rest of us here. Mm-hmm. Awesome. That's just fantastic. I mean, what a great, there's so much more stuff here than I would have in my regular office. And I mean, oh, wow, I could talk about a whole bunch of stuff around here. So the question, will we continue that? I don't know. I certainly like it. It's out of my comfort zone. Clearly people responding and enjoy it. So I'm going to have to figure out a way to keep that going.
My question would be for Derek. I mean, what you do is so worthwhile for companies, but are you finding companies that would have never included something like this in the existing culture, expanding their world, sailing off in new territories and thinking, well, maybe this is something we had never imagined? I mean, everybody we're talking to has existing cultures that are similar to what we're doing. Is there an awakening going on through this process?
So the answer is I believe there is. I think that many of the companies that we're currently working with already have those conscious leaders, those people that recognize this need to be more personalized, more vulnerable. But I do think, broadly speaking, Tom, there is a consciousness or awakening happening because just the circumstances of now work and home has become obviously intertwined in a way that, we always kind of knew, but now every leader is confronted head on with the fact that you're working at home and your home life, your kids are walking in during meetings and you're having the conversations that I'm just talked about, and the stresses and the time management around that, and the fact that people are working around the clock and needing to optimize their calendars to reflect when they can be most efficient and when they're educating their kids versus joining a meeting, and how to navigate all that has been something new and different. And so I do think that being confronted with this is a reality that may have been kind of known but not really appreciated to the level that it is now. And I think that to your point, in the next, call it 6 to 18 months, as we do recalibrate what are the expectations of work and home life, and where do they come together, and how do people's expectations regarding safety and for their family safety especially impact how people want to work. And I think this is going to be an ongoing conversation, and I don't think there'll be a return to normal. We will be moving forward in a way that we'll have to, bring along some things that are working now. We'll have to adjust, and it'll be new arrangements and new models. So I think it's really cool. And from our standpoint at LifeGuides, I think it's a really exciting time, and we feel like we're really in a good position to serve people. And
I think so too, but I think that not every organization is there. Yeah. I'm very fond of Howard Moskowitz's saying. He said, to a worm in horseradish, the whole world is horseradish.
Right.
And I don't think most organizations are prepared or even care to understand what the horseradish is that we call culture. I mean, we talk about our aspirations. We talk about all kinds of cool things that we wish our company was, but are we prepared to objectively understand? Because I know a lot of very disgruntled, very upset employees right now who have been considered non-essential workers and
right.
Sent home or fired. And they've been loyal to their companies for so long, and this has really damaged them. They're so emotionally damaged just simply by the designation. When the government decided that these are the essential workers and these are the non-essential workers, the employers use that designation to define the term as to who was going to work, who wasn't going to work, who was going to be fired. And by the way, that's just in itself, that's a problem, because the people who were going to work were going to come to work every day and risk their health and their family, and the people who were furloughed or fired, no matter how loyal they were to their organization, all of a sudden they were told that they were non-essential.
Yeah.
And then they had to go home and risk their financial well-being. And so, no, I think that this is great, and it's great to hear. I had a great conversation with Shannon Textera from Waste Management the other day. They're doing extraordinary things. The two of you are doing extraordinary things in your organization, but I think a lot of companies are really missing the fact that this is really causing a lot of stress, a lot of damage within their organization.
Yeah, I mean, before I chime in on this, Robyn, I could tell you want to say something, and I know you have personal experience with some of these decisions as well. So if you want to speak up, and then I'll give my 2 cents on it too. But.
Yeah, I think you're right, Tom, in the sense of I think everybody, this was unprecedented. Nobody knew what to do. There were certainly lots of directives from the government. And I think organizations had a choice to make. They could use the terms essential, non-essential, and use the government to make decisions. Or to your point, they could rest on the foundation of their culture and do what was right. And in some cases, in full transparency, we had to have some layoffs. I mean, we were at the height of our highest headcount, ready for our largest season. We're a little bit opposite of retail. And the pandemic came, and we had to make some very tough choices. What we did, though, about making those choices and how we treated those people who gave years of service to our organization was very important to us. And so how we talked about it, how we delivered it, how we set them up to hopefully return as the back half of the year comes back. And those who wanted the choice to stay home, because as schools were closing, some people came to us even more stressed out about the challenge of having to work while that was going on with special needs kids. And so we went through and talked about, 5,000 employees as individuals and didn't take a peanut butter spread approach. And I appreciate what you said. I think there are a lot of organizations out there who said, the government said it's not essential and we've got to make decisions, and looked at numbers on a spreadsheet and did that. And I think you're absolutely right. And if there's anything I would want folks to take away from today in this discussion is that everybody in every organization is a person, an individual, and there's something behind their employee ID number that is much bigger than the thing you see on a spreadsheet. And so every decision you make should absolutely go through the what's the right thing to do filter. And as your business starts to pick up, and it will, right, there will be versions of this, whether 6, 12, or 18 months, be mindful how you exit and enter people, because that's what defines who you are, is the moment in the toughest decision, how you stay strong to who you are culturally as an organization. And we've been very aware of that. And I think even when I had the first initial conversation with Derek, I still tear up talking about what our organization went through and the people who were impacted, because they were, I'm going to do it now, they were amazing folks who built this organization. And our hope is that we'll get them back, and that that was the right decision, but it was the thing we had to do at that moment in time. And
I'm really proud of you. And I think that what you're doing is extraordinary. The question is what is broken about our employees right now? What are the, even their self-esteem and their self-worth and their sense of personal pride is being damaged by this. And I think that we need to be aware of it. First of all, we need to listen to our employees. We need to bring them into this conversation. I'm glad you guys are doing this, but I think that it's really important that we take the time to communicate with our employees what it feels like to be them right now. I stopped asking people, how are you? And I started asking people, how does it feel to be you? Because I think that we're really not paying attention and we're really not listening to that. And I think we need to address the idea that the mechanisms that people have to process praise, to process this pandemic is being damaged, and people don't know how to process what we're doing. Not everybody, I should say, not everybody has the ability to process the praise, to process all of this activity into self-worth, into meaningfulness. The first thing I turn to is, every time there's a crisis, is Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning. Are you familiar with the book? Yeah. When my mother passed away, I read it for the first time. I've read it about 4 or 5 times since. And Viktor Frankl was a contemporary of Sigmund Freud, who had created an entire theory of psychology. And before he was able to publish it, the Nazis came in and took him to the concentration camps and destroyed his entire lifetime of work. And he was in Auschwitz and Dachau for 3 years. And when he left, when he finally got out, he wrote this book, Man's Search for Meaning, and explained that the people who survived that atrocity were people who were able to find a sense of meaningfulness, a sense of kind of self-worth in all of this. And the people who didn't weren't. And I think I have mentioned this to you before, Derek. Do you mind if I read what I got out of the book recently?
Sure, go ahead real quick, and then I'm going to transition to an additional conversation on this. Keep going, Tom.
Right, he wrote, we who lived in concentration camps can remember the men who walked through the huts comforting others, giving away their last piece of bread. They may have been few in number, but they offered sufficient proof that everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances. And to me, that kind of embodies what I'm thinking and the work that I'm trying to do right now. The idea that we need to help them understand how to emotionally handle what's going on right now, and how to deal with their attitude in this horrible set of circumstances.
So a couple of things. I mean, so one, I think that's an exemplary quote of what we were trying to accomplish at LifeGuides, Tom, first off, in terms of helping people frame their emotional mindset and well-being. So that's acknowledgement. And I think the other thing is, I really feel you speaking to the broader audience of business leaders out there, because I know that Robyn and Adam are very much in this conversation, taking the responsibility that you're describing of what is aspirational, and that they're doing these things. And I also want to recognize them for doing that. And I think all of us can relate to our role. You know, the other day, there was an article talking about the CEO being a comforter, right? I mean, that's the role right now, is that the role is to help people find their path, find their stability, find their well-being, to create the resources and tools that are there to support them. And I think that each of you is doing powerful work in that regard, both in every aspect of your company, so in your organization. So, but I completely agree on the general tone of that, Tom, and what No,
I totally admire what these people are doing when so many other people are doing. But I think we need to recognize that not every employee would say that their company is treating them the way you guys are treating your employees.
Well, I think that goes back to the conversation, which we're kind of going back around, because I do think that this is that awakening moment. I think that employees and employers are becoming much more aware of each other's needs and what the expectations of each other will be moving forward. And even some of the questions that we're receiving right now are aligned with that. Go ahead, Adam. Feel free to chime in. Yeah.
I have a worry for you, Derek, a concern specifically for you, because in my experience, as we go, people companies, CEOs get enlightened about the importance of the employee and the holistic well-being and their sense of self and all those sorts of things when there's a war for talent, when the market's tight. And man, the moment it switches, they're not so interested anymore. So right. I have a concern for LifeGuides that CEOs might see it as a tool to be able to help me, keep my employees a little bit longer. And if they don't care about that anymore, then they don't care about that anymore. So while overall the trend, I think, Tom, you're right, there are more and more enlightened businesses over time. I think the short-term trend is not good for you. Sorry.
I agree. And my experience tells me that a lot of people are approaching the work I'm doing by saying, we're just too busy for this. We've got to keep the doors open. We've got to keep this. And I'm like, wait, hold on a second. You're not too busy to address the emotional well-being of your employees, because you can't be. How are you going to get your business moving without them?
Right.
Or how are you going to get their business moving and successful with having people who are broken come to work every day?
I think it's interesting you're talking about that. And so just chiming in for a group that I feel very fortunate. I work with an executive team that, we were having these conversations before the pandemic, we're having them through, and we're talking about what we will look like on the other side. And, I challenge all those operations leaders and CEOs out there who are watching to say, if your culture wasn't strong and your foundation was cracked before, what you do today will not fix it, right? You have got to have a long-term sustainable strategy. And, we're talking about every day. One of the things we did before this all started is we had a company called Gas Hero come to our offices, and you could get your gas tank filled up without ever leaving the office on an app. Mm-hmm. Now more than ever, that's important, because where's the first place people are afraid to go? Where there's tons of traffic, they have to touch what's never wiped down, right? I was scared to go to a gas station before this happened, let alone now. And we called that partner and said, you know what? We may not have a bunch of people at the office for you to do that anymore, but if we had people opt in, would you go to their homes and do it, or their apartment complex and do it? Will you still offer us that same service? So I think there are organizations out there that, to your point, Tom, their foundation was strong, and we have aspirations too. We are not perfect. There are tons of things on our roadmap that we hope to do. I think where you're talking about is where that executive team has to get aligned, and it is on not any one of their shoulders, but on all of them collectively. Because if we just depended on our CEO, he's amazing, but he's dependent on me to do the thing that I bring to the table, and I'm dependent on our CFO to do the thing she does. And if that executive team isn't cohesive and they're not thinking about this from a not tomorrow answer, but a 12 to 18 to 36 month answer, we'll probably not be talking about those businesses anymore anyway, because the sustainability model.
But how does this message from these two culture warriors get through to people who are dealing with that? And what Adam said about Derek is true, and especially goes for me. I mean, culture has been on the back burner, and I work with companies around the country on helping them build great places to work for their employees. I'm just as scared as anybody right now, because how far to the back burner does that go now? And I think that I'd like to think that people were enlightened enough to move it to the front burner.
Well, and I have to comment on that in two parts, both kind of reinforcing that. I mean, I think, Adam, your question kind of come back around, is I do think this is an opportunity for leaders like all of us to continue to advocate for this as a responsibility as leaders, right, in this time. And it's not about just the war of talent, right, for recruiting and retention. It's about how do you help people have the best level of their contribution and their potential wherever they are, within your company, within your competitor's company. I mean, we're all stakeholders of the same situation, right? And so, and even with LifeGuides, I mean, keep in mind, the whole model of LifeGuides is that we're pairing people who have an experience with other people. That's an employment opportunity, right? So we have an opportunity to connect people directly who are able to share that experience of their life with others who are going through a similar challenge. It's a huge opportunity beyond directly impacting what your companies are doing. There's another element of this new transformation economy that we're talking about, that we're creating together. And I think that that's the part of this long-term plan that Robyn was sharing. I think this is the beginning of a major shift relating to the relationship between employers and employees, and the expectations that each of us has as it pertains to, the words of corporate social responsibility, but more importantly, just personal impact, right? I think it's making it real as opposed to a concept. And I think that's really what we're seeing the beginning of. And I think we'll see the next 10 years really play out. And I think this is going to be a fascinating time. That's my take.
But what worries me is that we don't have time, that there are people that are watching this, that are, whether they're HR people or CEOs or whatever, that are still working in an environment that we're too busy for this. This is like, we're going through a crisis. We don't have time for this.
I think there's two ways to think about that. So I think about my role as an HR professional or employee experience, now we've gotten upgraded, is not about what I do inside my organization only. It's about how our organization tells that story to others. So I think about my partners like a Derek or the Gas Hero or the vendors who in a time of need were helping me find great talent. Now more than ever is the time to lean on them and share your strategy, ask them to come under the tent so they can tell others. So we're on a call today. I've learned a bunch of stuff from Adam and you that I'll take back to our organization, and then I'll tell 3 other HR professionals what I learned. And hopefully if we can all stay connected and remember that it's much bigger than any one of us. It's much bigger than our own organization. And that, to Adam's point, really what we want to do is impact the world. We don't want to impact just our own employees, because every one of them are interacting, maybe even with your own employees, and they're telling our story and your folks are telling their story, and they're going to learn something from each other. And so we have a kind of a little rule in our organization around every month we challenge each other to go meet 3 new people outside of your group, learn something new and bring it back to others. And so, you know, we can't be responsible for all those who don't want to take the advice. And quite frankly, that'll all come around to them at some point. I hope it doesn't. I hope they adopt. But I think, as I think about, and I'm even reading some of the questions that are coming up as we're chatting, and I think it starts with us, right? So how we think about who we are and how we live our own culture and how we champion it. We just need one other person to do the same, and then they'll have one other person, and we think about it as the chain of events, and we're all connected. And, you know, none of us are great on every given day. Quite frankly, this last 70 days, I could tell you the 8 of them where I thought I wasn't going to scrape myself off the floor and, you know, try again tomorrow. But I think about the one person who picked me up that day, and then I've got to pay it forward to the next guy who isn't going to be able to pick themselves up. And I hope, again, the reason this was so important to me when Derek and folks reached out was we have a chance for others to hear that message. And if 1 or 2 on this call take our message and keep it going and bring it back to their organization and continue to champion that, then that's a success for me. Because and for those of you who are working at an organization where they're not doing that for you, look me up on LinkedIn, because
exactly.
I don't have an opportunity for you. I'll find somebody who does, because we all deserve to be happy. And
but if I can interject one thing, one of my heroes is Dan Ariely, who's a professor at Duke University in behavioral economics and has extraordinary books. He's done a great deal of research on this. And although most people think that humans are like rats in a maze, that we show up for work and we do our job because we're getting paid for it, the research that he's done has really explained that people really are much more motivated by a sense of meaningfulness.
Yes.
Yeah.
And with all of these games, with all of these fun things that we're doing for our employees, the question is how can we provide for them a sense of meaningfulness in their contribution to helping us get through this and get beyond it. And to me, that we're really kind of missing the point here, is that, yes, we want to keep our employees engaged, but more importantly, we want them to understand how meaningful they are to what's going to happen in the future. We need to find ways to do that.
I think it goes back right to the beginning of where Adam shared. I mean, it's aligning the bigger purpose of your organization, aligning your recruiting and training and all the benefits that we offer to that purpose, to that mission. And then, again, echoing your point, Robyn, having aligned leadership that continues to socialize and can really breathe out the organization. And then, Tom, obviously things like you're working on, you know, we're reinforcing how appreciated and how individualized people are and how essential they are. I mean, those are all aspects, and then all the different ideas, the fun things that we talked about are all examples of ways that you are all applying this. And I think that other companies that really want to move the needle on their people and their performance and their culture are also going to do. So we're coming to the top of our time here. I can't believe that an hour has already gone here. I feel like we didn't even get into the questions from the audience. I felt like we talked around some of them a little bit throughout the session. But at the very minimum, it seems like we've gotten some good feedback for each of you and what you brought here today. Again, I just want to thank you all for just being aligned leaders, being those conscious warriors, being the cultural warriors, and really just every day showing up through a challenging time and being an example for what what the future culture of business and life, for that matter, can look like, and what Rebels at Heart really can be, as we use business as a force to influence and change the world for the better. So with that,
can I jump in and just mention, go to imessential.com, imessentialproject.com, and see what I'm working on, because I think we need to take back the word essential. The government has designated essential to be people who can work and people who can't work. And I think it's done a lot of damage. I've always known my employees were essential. And I think we need to deliver that a message. Right now, it's just stickers. I don't know what it is, what it's going to become. I hope it's going to become a movement, because I want people to understand that that being essential means that who you are and what you do for our company, you should feel a sense of pride and a sense of self-esteem and meaningfulness. And I really want that to be a permanent shift in mindset that goes well beyond this pandemic.
Totally agree with all of that.
imessentialproject.com.
Thank you, Tom. Robyn, thank you as well. Adam, thank you as well. You're all fantastic partners. Appreciate your time and your expertise and your heart and showing up here today, and looking forward to collaborating with you through these changes.